In this episode, we welcome Danny Owens, who is one of the founders of Toil Studio, which helps brands bring their creativity to life through still photography and videography and just overall production and brand design. The guy's been around a while doing awesome work for Lululemon, as well as Urban Outfitters, Topo Chico, other really cool brands. And in this episode, Danny and I talk about what, as a brand, you should be thinking about when it comes to kicking off a production. So we get into what should you be earmarking for budget? How should you be planning it? How should you be doing the bid process? What should you be thinking about it when you're collaborating with a production partner? All of these things to get the best results. Also, when are you ready as a brand to take on more of a commercial level production? So I think this episode is really, really valuable for any brand that's looking to level up their content game or build out a content library and to understand what it takes to do that and then how to properly prep for it. So join me in welcoming Danny for a killer episode. The guy really knows his stuff. So tell me about Toil. I looked at the site, looked at the Instagram. It looks sick what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
And it looks like it, Andrew mentioned it was kind of a new venture for you, and like what's going on? How's it going?
Yeah, I mean it's been around for I think almost 2 years now. I have
Oh,
been
it's not that new.
not that new,
Okay.
no. But I've been a like a producer for almost a decade now. I started out in-house at Urban Outfitters and Squarespace, and have worked for agencies, worked for other production companies, done freelance. And around like 2 years ago, I got laid off from my last job, turned 30, and found out that my wife was pregnant with her first baby in like 1 month. And so, yeah, I think it kind of like kicked us off into figuring out like what we were doing in our lives, like individually as like partners, but also in my own career. And that's where I like kind of chatted with some of my like close friends who were like in the design field, and we kind of like collaborated on this studio, like creative studio. And I lead like the production side of it, and there's a design side of it that my friend and partner Alejandro Rodriguez leads. But yeah, I mean, Toil on my end is really about content production, whether that's from stills to motion. We do everything from like asset libraries and like, prop still life shoots for products to full on commercial spots and directed campaigns. So a lot like a scale of like small budgets to large budgets. But yeah, now I'm kind of like more in this like executive producer role where I'm managing everything and organizing everything and making sure everything like flows, but in a place where I'm like, assigning projects to other line producers and bringing on associate producers to kind of grow with us. And so it's kind of gotten like a bigger thing than it started out as. And even like this last quarter was our biggest and most, I guess like heavily packed quarter we've ever had. And we've produced more shoots in the half of this year than we did all of last year. So definitely like growing at like a clip, which is like fun and exciting, but also like we figuring out how to like keep up with that and like find the right people to like be a part of the journey has been a learning experience.
Hell yeah, dude. And congrats on the growth. Did the so I don't even know how it works to run like a production agency.
Yeah.
Is it you guys kind of have like your core team of like I imagine like you're a seasoned vet, your co-founders or partners are, and then do you just have like kind of this like, ever expanding like black book of resources or people that you can tap in, so you're still kind of like a general contractor and they're not on staff but they're a phone call away depending on what the project is that how it
Yeah,
works?
I exactly. I feel like we actually are very well related to general contractors in like construction because it's all about like who the people that you have like built a rapport with, and like who's in your phone book that you can call. We I have just built relationships like with like a few like really solid like line producers and coordinators and associate producers, and they're kind of like just always in rotation. We have two associate producers and production coordinator, hybrid roles that are just like always on, and they're kind of just always a part of every project. And then like if it's like a larger project, we'll assign it to a live producer who's freelance and just like, joins Toil for that project. But we've really intentionally kept Toil very much like low overhead. Like there's no employees, we don't have an office, and I think that like for a production studio, that's actually like really beneficial because you need to go where the production needs to go. And I think that like just saying that like you're only an LA production company, you're only New York production company is actually like kind of detrimental because then it tells clients that you're only able to like do something in that one city. And even like this last like couple of months, we're producing a shoot in Portland right now. We did one in Dallas. We did one in Houston. We've shot in Seattle. So it really like kind of lends itself to being like very nimble, and we can kind of just like ramp up wherever we need to go.
What's like the typical projects? I know it depends and it's all over the place because you kind of rattled it off, but like what would you think what's like a typical project for you guys these days?
I would say there's like two pretty standard projects and scopes. I think one of them is stills forward, and it's usually like an asset library or like a content shoot for like a product drop or like a company that's just like launching. And that's usually like a 1 day shoot, whether that's like in studio or location, and we're kind of like capturing the product in like the essence of their brand. So like today we're doing a shoot in LA for a company that does like photo albums, and so we're spending a day in like a like a home location with some talent and kind of capturing like lifestyle like content for like an asset library. Next week we're shooting for a fashion brand. It's like a 3 day shoot, and it's like a much larger shoot. But yeah, it's a lot of that like content library production. And then the other side of it would be motion spots, so like 30s, 15s, 6s, that kind of stuff. Like we just did a shoot that was in was it Houston? Dallas? No, it was in Dallas, and it was with like an NFL football player, and we just like ramped up at this gym and did like a storyboard spot, and like we ended up with like yeah, I think like 4 or 5 unique cuts coming out of that. But yeah, I would say it's like content library, and then like more like shorter form like branded content.
Nice. The I so I should back up. Like the purpose of our podcast and like why I'm even doing this is just, I'm on kind of like this pursuit of, we work with ecom brands, scaling brands, like rapidly growing. We have a couple larger brands in the roster, but for the most part, we're going off for these brands that are like under 100 million, trying to get over 100 million, like super growth, very entrepreneurial, all that. So kind of the unanswerable question is like, how do you get to over 100 million? And so I'm just talking to anybody and everybody who can help answer parts of that. So this is a lead up to my question. When you work with clients, like what what's the best client experience for you? Like I feel like this is us agency guys kind of selfishly, maybe you could even like vent of like clients that don't have their shit together or maybe think of like what's the best client you worked with and like what made them the best, like how can they be a great client to you guys?
I think it comes down to, though, I mean, the best client situations that we have are clients that treat us like an integrated partner and not just like a vendor that is kind of like one and done. I think that the pretty standard agency production relationship is an agency producer comes to a production company and they're like, we're bidding out this project. It's a triple bid. You're gonna like treat on this for free. You're gonna like bid on it for free, and you're like in competition with two other production companies. You have no idea who they are. You don't know like if there's like bias or relationships within those other production companies. You don't know if the agency is like giving you all the same information, and so like that always like lends itself to kind of like a weird competitive, almost like shadowy relationship. And you're not necessarily like on this like kind of even playing field where you just like want to make good work. You're like being transparent. It becomes very much like you're, you're a lot of production companies are trying to like hide like profit margins and make sure they can like, ensure that like this is like a lucrative project. At the same time, the agency is maybe like downplaying the total budget that's allotted so that they can make sure that they have their cut. It's become like this whole like kind of like scenario. The client relations we have that I really value are this like more integrated approach where like they kind of like, and part of my friends, but like they kind of like get rid of all the bullshit and they're just like, hey, we're like here to like do a project. We know you have the experience. We like how you work. We like your like kind of portfolio. Let's have conversations. Let's do this together. And the way that like Toil has been structured is that because I came from being in-house at brands, I like have worked at agencies. I'm like used to like just being integrated with like the creatives and even like the client sometimes. And so those relationships tend to be a little bit more like fruitful because we cut out all that like, I don't know, like back and forth, like trying to get to the start of the project, and we're just actually like working on it together, and even being a part of like the creative dev. Like when I think that the best in the situations for us is when we're able to like work alongside the creatives while they're thinking through the idea, so that we can say, well, this is how much money you have, this is what you can do. That idea is way out of scope. We shouldn't even like be moving forward. That this idea is too simple. We could probably like plus it up. And I think it just comes. It takes a kind of client who's willing to be hyper transparent and like collaborative. And we typically find that with like direct to brand clients. I think that when it's
Yeah.
like a client agency and production relationship, that doesn't tend to happen because there is like that middleman mentality. Um, and so I would say like some of our best clients have been just like direct to brand. We've done like
Yeah, totally. As an agency guy, representing the middlemen, like, I totally hear you, and I think it's oftentimes that comes from a place of insecurity, from the agency, because that's definitely not our style. Like, if we're bringing in a partner, like just a small little thing, like I'm anti white labeling. Like, not that we would white label a production partner, but like other agencies or partners, I'm not white labeling, because if I always tell the truth, I never have to remember anything, and so I think it comes from a place of insecurity, which, in my opinion, is probably a symptom of they don't have an actual solid relationship with their client. So they're like fearful, which is
yeah,
hard to get. Sometimes it takes years to get to that level of relationship and comfort and vulnerability with a client.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, I would say like one of our consistent clients, we work with Headley and Bennett. They're like a D2C kitchenware
they're an
brand.
apron company.
Aprons. They have
Yeah.
kitchen tools. They have a bunch of. They're coming out with more products, but I think we've done over 10 shoots with them at this point, and we're just kind of their de facto production partner. And it's because like I'm literally on Slack with their content director. She can just like Slack me whenever like something's coming up. We can plan ahead. Like we can go back and forth on shot lists before we even locked anything. And to them, it's just like that's just I'm an arm of their company now. Another client we have with the same thing, like they treat us like an arm of their company, and so it doesn't, it creates that like that almost like that friendship where you're just like a peer, you're not a vendor, and I think that like really leads to like some good work.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, it's such a simple thing, but like actually so rare. I know I'm preaching to the choir. I had somebody else on the podcast, a former mentor of mine. I asked him, like, what's the number one advice you would have for clients to get really good work out of their agency partner? He did not even hesitate, and he said the number one thing a client can do is show appreciation. And he goes, because at the end of the day, the people on the other side of Slack or the phone or Zoom or whatever are just humans trying to do great work. Everybody wants to do great work. And so just a little bit of appreciation goes a long way. And I'll just riff on this for a second. So literally this last week, we had a client, new head of marketing came in. She's trying to put her stamp on things, shake things up, probably posture a little bit. That's what I would probably do, show the new team what you're doing. And being a little stern. And I had a one-on-one call with her, and just was able to speak candidly. And I told her exactly that, because she asked, like, what can we do to help you? What can we do to help you guys? And I said, the best thing you can do is show appreciation. I go, I'm the CEO. You can lay into me. That's fine. I can take it. But the team is feeling the heat because the client, the brand, was really under pressure to get performance and all that. And dude, so she did that, and the very same day, and then since then, and it's been the last week, it's been 1 week, unbelievable, like the shift in morale, the output of work from our team. And what's crazy is, like, we even know, I don't even know if the client's being fake about it or is really genuinely appreciative, but just like the Slack messages are showing appreciation and hype and stoke, and like the team is just flying high and wants to crush it for this client now. So I'm like, that's become like I'm going to tell every new client of like, hey, I know this sounds like hand wavy and woo woo, but I promise you this is going to put your agency on steroids. Like, if
Yeah,
you can just like be appreciative.
100%. I feel like I mean I have pretty thick skin because of just like what I do, but like
Yeah.
production companies tend to like never get the like we're so happy, because I think a lot of times like it's like the agency and the client is like trying to like hold back to like make sure that like you give them everything they need to get, and there isn't that kind of like they don't want to like let on that they're like super stoked all the time, because then obviously it's like, okay, well then you're acknowledging the value, you're acknowledging like kind of like what you're getting out of the production. But I always say like on my sets, and this is something we always like say in our safety meetings being the day, is I always say like, hey, we're like literally getting paid to like make pictures and like short films and stuff like on set, and we're getting like paid like pretty well. You could there's a lot of like jobs you could do that like are a lot like more like hard and gross and like gnarly, and like you don't get paid as well. You don't get like crusty and like puffy and at you. And so I think that like really trying to like reiterate that like that almost like sense of like we're lucky to get to do what we do, and it's like not as serious as like sometimes it's made out to be. Like we're not curing cancer. We're like making like an ad on TV that like maybe somebody's gonna pay attention to for like 15 seconds, and then it's gonna be forgotten in like a couple months. I understand the value of like that need to like deliver that product, but like I think sometimes, and my wife always says this, like I think sometimes people like in the advertising industry need to touch grass like a little bit to like just be like, hey, like we're all part of like Earth, and like we're all kind of like just trying to like live and do the best
Yeah.
we can. So yeah, I think
No,
appreciation
it's
definitely
so
goes far.
funny because it's like it again. It sounds woo woo and hand wavy, but like I think that that type of energy, that like tight, like I talk about this all the time. My wife's also in marketing as well, and just like it's weird. I think we all fall victim to it sometimes, but like you're at work and like this like robot corporate thing takes over your personality, and you just like "Oh, I gotta make this professional or whatever." And it's just like, I think that in the work, in the creative work, people can feel that. And or they can feel it when a brand or a team isn't overthinking it. Like, don't overthink it. Just go shoot some cool shit that you think is fun or you think is compelling or interesting or engaging, and don't overthink it. Just publish. And, as long as the stakes aren't crazy high and you're not $1 billion brand, I understand you have to be a little bit more calculated there sometimes. But
Yeah,
yeah, stop overthinking it. It's not like we're not diffusing a nuclear bomb.
yeah.
Danny, I want to go back to um, the bidding process thing, because like I think that's really really hard. If you and I put our if we put our brains or in the mind of a client who's trying to hire a production company, and you're saying like you just want to, from our perspective, our buyers, we want them just to commit, be a partner, and I totally agree that would definitely get the best work out of my team or your team. Like, but on their side they don't know us, like it's risky. Like, what's the best way to do it if you're them? Is there a better way to do it, or do you just have to just like go with your gut, and or can you quickly weed out the other folks and not make all the other production companies like jump through the bid and do free work and all that? Like, how would you do it if you were on the client side?
I mean, it's such a question that I like say I don't want this to be this scenario, but I don't necessarily have like the alternative to it. But I do think that like there is something to say about like I mean sometimes the bidding process can just be like very like, and it's like inhumane in like a way that like maybe it's like sounds like too rough, but like it like the humanity gets like removed from it, and like there's not like I sometimes I don't feel like we're digging into the creative or like the creative approach, and we're just kind of like digging into like the process. It's like let's make sure we get like the bid format and the numbers are matching this ballpark, and like it's kind of structured in that way, but like we're not having these kind of like collaborative like creative like brainstorm calls that like I think would actually help you find your right partner. We just did a spot with this director Josh Cohen for a forthcoming spot that comes out in like 2 weeks for like a noodle brand, and I actually felt like that was like a really successful bidding process, because we were able to like get the creatives talking with Josh like on multiple meetings, like kind of like hashing things out, like iterating on the creative, and I think that like led it to a successful award, because they actually felt like they were like in partnership with the creative. I think a lot of times like this like pitch, it's just like here's a treatment deck. You would get on like one chemistry call with like the director or the photographer, and then it's really just more of like a numbers game with like the client or the agency, like taking it through the bid. It's like not really like uh, a, a a growing evolution of like what you're trying to do. And that's what I think what I always would love it to be is more like, hey, here's our like version one bit. This is like kind of like our first stab at it. Now let's like talk about it. Like let's have like detailed conversations with like bring in the creative. I think what actually happens a lot of times is that like that's your last chance. And if it doesn't like vibe off the bat, you've lost your chance and then you never go anywhere else. And so I think that's where I would say like the bidding process gets lost is that you don't ever have like these like there, I mean, at least I think lately with my biz, I feel like I haven't had that opportunity to kind of like work through the kinks. And it's like a one and done, like you either get it or you don't. And I feel like that is kind of like a negative. But yeah, I don't know what the solution is. I think that like it's just more of like the evolution of like agencies and production companies and brands. And I just see the more and more that like brands are like engaging with production companies or agencies in an integrated way, it tends to lead to a longer term relationship that is less of a like one-off bid and then like go on the next one if it doesn't work or whatever. I just
Yeah. You know what I'm hearing? Because I'm going, obviously, I'm pitching new business all the time. And it's like, I'm kind of like hearing, and I'm thinking in my head of like, yeah, this is the same story on our side. In that dance that you do when you're trying to like get a new client or they're trying to hire a new agency, like, I'm really just hearing like, hey, just be more human and be more collaborative and like stop with these. You don't need to be a hard ass negotiator. Like that's where I think a lot of prospective clients go around. Like we're all just trying to like run a business. If the numbers don't work for us, then they don't work. If they don't work for you, they don't work. But it's like we're all trying. If like they like the product that you deliver and there's a good chemistry there, then I think the mistake you nailed it. The mistake that clients I think make prospective clients make is like, oh, that's the option they gave us and it doesn't work. Sorry, next. Versus what if they came back and like, hey, look, we really like you, we really like this. The numbers just aren't working. Like, how can maybe we can steer the treatment in a different way to do it a little scrappier? Like, would you guys be open to that?
yeah.
Like more collaboration to try to like get to a partnership. Like the goal is partnership, not the goal is do the same thing for less money or
Yeah,
whatever. Like,
and I think that's we have an example. We're working with this agency Hyphenated for the second time on a shoot for the same client. And like originally when they came to me, like the budget and the scope like didn't really like align. Like it was like the scope was here and the budget was here. And so I sent them the budget that was like here to match, and it obviously wasn't like where they needed to be. And so there's always that concern, like I just said, like that's your one chance and you've lost it if you don't meet it. But we actually have built a relationship where like, okay, I got on a call with like their CCO and we're like, how can we make this more approachable? Okay, great. Like, let's not be like a full, like huge production footprint, like locked off video village. And we have like this massive crew. Let's approach this more of like a run and gun shoot where we're a little bit more nimble. We're kind of like jumping in the van from spot to spot and like very tight crew. And we can meet you at that number. It's just like you aligning with the agency aligning with their client, and we're all like communicating. I think that what I see happen a lot, and obviously we're like a new production company, but I've been in the world of production for a while, so I feel like I could speak to this. But everyone wants work, and I think that there is like bigger fish that can like assume a loss on profit or like no profit to keep getting work and to keep putting work out there. And then there's people like me, like I have to be able to like profit on my projects because I don't have like this like holding company or huge support system behind me to like kind of keep us afloat. And so I can't like take a hit on a project really to like get it. And there are people who, companies out there that can take a hit and are like, going to underbid something to just win it. And I think that like, for me, I wish that wouldn't happen as much, but I think it does like take that humanity out of it. It's more of like just like a gobbling up of things. So they have like this like massive support system around them versus I'm really trying to like integrate and like collaborate and work very closely with each partner to make sure that like the scope and the budget and the creative all like are in cohesion versus like one of them being out of whack.
yeah, yeah. But I also think like that's why there's always going to be, scale up agencies and brands and products that are just forging a bullet with the big guy's name on it. Cause it's like, yes, you're going to have to make your profit to, put food on the table for your family. But at the same time, you're going to work your ass off and you're not like the client's not plugging into a big machine that just kind of cranks and maybe hasn't an ego. I don't know if I've worked with many agencies, the big agencies, the Omnicom agency of the world. It's like, God, you can't fit the egos through the door. Like, and so I think that scrappiness and just like, hunger. That's why there's always going to be a small agency that shakes it up because
Yeah.
they're going to do something different.
And I like being that small agency or that small studio because I feel like I can always make sure that like I'm signing off on everything that we do. It's like I remember the first time when I was an actual like producer at Squarespace, we were like one of the largest like production companies in the world. And I remember me being naive, like talking to like the MD or the HOP or whatever at the start. That was supposed to be working with. And then like every step along the way, be like a new person was involved. And I was like, oh, there's like seven people that like this is now trickled down to.
Yeah.
And with Toil,
And
like we all,
everybody's trying to like put their stamp on it and like
uh,
justify why they have a job there.
yeah, and I mean that's why with Toil was like, man, like, I never want to get to the extreme of a size where like I don't even know what's going on anymore. Like I'm always like
Yeah.
want to make sure that like I'm in touch. So I know what's happening. I'm not micromanaging all my producers, but like we're all like in communication. And if a client like wants to talk to me, they can.
Yeah. So how about like after, okay, project kicks off, what are some other like huge mistakes, or maybe you just even think specifically where things have gone completely sideways on you guys, and like why? I'm looking for like pitfalls and things that, either an agency can avoid or whoever you're working with or a client can avoid.
I wish I had like disasters to share. I don't. I feel like
Love it.
I've always had pretty successful. I mean, the only time I ever had like a shoot that like went haywire was like during COVID and like during lockdowns and stuff
Mm.
like that. Yeah, I mean, really, like I think maybe this is like an answer, but I think that just having like 100% like clear communication, expectations, process, timeline, like locked in before you even like move forward is how you ensure a successful shoot. I think that like when I was on the other end of the coin working with vendors, there are some vendors I noticed were like I'd be like a week into the project, I was like, I don't even know what the timeline is anymore. I don't even know like what the next steps are. And I think that like I learned from those lessons of being now the company, like always providing the agency with like what's the next step, what's coming up, what are the like yeses or nos of like how the scope can change. But yeah, I don't have like crazy stories of disaster to share, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, and then maybe it's even like annoyances, but I think it's just in our world, I always talk about like we have like this pyramid of account management or strategy, and like there's four levels. The bottom of the pyramid is timing and clarity. It's like the foundation of everything. Like, are people really clear on what the deliverables and expectations are, and as does everybody know the timing on that?
Yeah.
And if our team is not hitting that, the whole pyramid crumbles down, and there's other layers that I won't bore you with, but like that's everything. And I think
Yeah.
like for a production, at least in my experience, which is, limited compared to yours, but it's like, it's not rocket science, but it is just like so much organization and planning. And then like the way I was taught, like on a shoot day, I don't know if you agree or disagree, but it's like you want it so packed that and so planned that there's really like you're not taking a minute to have to think about it. You're on to like the next item on the shot list or whatever. And
Yeah.
you have it in priority order, so it's like, we're probably not going to get to it all, but the stuff on the bottom of the list, that's a nice to have anyway. But I don't know, how do you guys run? Does that jive with how you guys run shoots, or how does it typically go for you
Yeah,
guys?
and the one thing I was gonna say when you said about timing and clarity, I think that like the one surprise that I would say that like I'm always surprised that like there's been so many times with an agency where they don't have a deliverables list locked like at the start of the project, and that always blows my mind because I just feel like that is like kind of that bottom layer of the pyramid or the rung of the ladder where like just having a deliverables list where we know what we're delivering from the very beginning just like cuts out so much ambiguity and like so many like misconnections down the line. But
So
yeah,
wait, what, so when they don't have that, like what, wait, how are they even hiring you? What is the project?
I mean, we roll with the punches on those, and we kind of like make it. We kind of assume what we're doing, and we like build the creative alongside them. But there's been plenty of times where we're like kicking off posts, and I'm always like, "Do you have that deliverables list ready that we're like going to be using?" And they had like a scramble to get it. But yeah, that's
Wow.
the one surprise I would say that like happens more often than not, where that's like a second thought. But as far as like the way we run things, I think that like the one I guess, like aspect of our shoots that like I think maybe sets us apart from some, I guess, like kind of more small, like smaller scale productions, is that like no matter if like the shoot is like a 30K shoot to like a 500K shoot, like we always make sure that like it's approached like a film. Like we have a very very clear schedule. We have like a very clear shot list. We usually will bring on a first AD even for still shoots, which is like not always common, but I think having that individual to like really like drive the day is very important, and especially for like new clients, smaller like D2C brands who are not really used to like commercial production. You gotta always like take them by surprise that like there's such a like a almost like a drill sergeant on set, like making sure that like we're hitting our shot list, that like the departments like know what's going on, and we're like making our day. Because I think a lot of times, like, brands that have just been like scrappy and doing it themselves, they're very much just used to setting their own team and like doing a shoe and like kind of like figuring it out as they go on the day. And when you're on a production with us, it's very much like there's always going to be a PPM. There's going to be pre PPMs. There's like a production deck. We have like a very like structural, templatized approach nowadays where it goes from the early creative dev to like a very very locked off pre-pro meeting before the shoot, even if it's like today, like the shoot that we're doing is it's not a large scale shoot, it's a small still shoot, but like I think we had our PPM yesterday, and it was like every item that was going to be there, from wardrobe to talent to hair makeup to location to the shot list to the schedule, was like reiterated multiple times to ensure that like when the client gets on set, there's not like any questions. Like they know exactly like what call time to wrap is going to look like, so that like they feel supported, they feel like we put in all the forethought for them, so that they can kind of like at that point sit back and just like answer like creative feedback and kind of work through any problem solving on set.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you typically recommend that clients are on set, or are they typically on set with you guys or on location?
Yeah, I think we're all the time clients are on set. I mean, the only times that like that became not normal was during COVID when there was like the remote production push. But yeah, I think that, I mean, for us, like every time we shoot, we want the client on set. It's more like it's even like a liability of the production. And like if they're
Yeah.
not there, like I don't want to answer for the decision making for the brand that is paying for the shoot. So yeah, always ensure the clients are there.
Or be forced to do a pickup
Yeah,
and reshoot something.
exactly.
So typical projects for you guys, or I don't want to ask you to like talk about pricing too much. What my real question is, like, let's say we have a scale up brand. What advice do you have to them for like planning a shoot? How much budget to allocate? I know the answer is it depends wildly, but like, can you just talk about what are your thoughts on budget, like planning for budget, planning for timing too, like just planning a shoot? Let's say we have a Black Friday campaign that we're going to do. So Black Friday, mid-November is going to launch. What starts going through your head of like, okay, what do you got to start thinking about as a brand?
Yeah, I mean, on the production front, a lot of times, like we're just kind of coming in at the point where creative is locked. I mean, not all the time we're integrated in the creative dev. Obviously, love being integrated at that point, but a lot of times it's like they have a creative brief, they have a shot list that they've already worked through, and they're coming to a production company to like execute on that. We need minimum 2 weeks pre-pro. Like I really try to avoid anything under 2 weeks of pre-pro because it just becomes like nonsense and gets really hairy. Ideally, like 3 weeks if we can. But
And
as
and Danny too, just for like people listening, like what is pre-pro? Like, can
oh,
you break that down?
pre-pro is pre-production. So like that's everything that's happening from the kickoff to the shoot, whether that's talent search, location search, prop styling polls, wardrobe styling polls, like camera prep, all that kind of stuff. Just anything that like needs to be like planned prior to arriving on set. That's even like booking crew, like permitting, like all that, like contracts, all that stuff. And so that's
I
why
think it's important to talk about that because it's like I don't think many people who have not been through a production, which is a lot of people on brand side, like understand the crazy amount of work that has to go in pre-pro, and the fact that you're only asking for 2 weeks. I Most clients, I can't. That would be insane.
yeah,
If they had to do that.
and I will say, like, it depends on the client because, like, we can do it in 2 weeks if, like, it's a very, like, integrated, like, they're responding in, like, a couple hours every time we have a question kind of thing. Obviously, that's not the case, and it goes up, like, 5 different levels of approval for every single thing that we need to do. You're going to need more time. But I think it's, I mean, I agree. It is a crazy industry and a crazy job because you're literally like building like a, especially if it's on location, you're building like a mobile like city, like every, yeah, like on the production. And this is like boring details for most creatives, but like we're thinking about like, where do people go to the bathroom? Like, like where, like, how are people getting fed? Like, is there electricity? Like, we've been on location where we have to have like snake wranglers to make sure that like rattlesnakes are not crawling onto set. Like, you know what I mean? Like everything that like you have like that you can imagine around like a pop-up location is like thought through. And I think that like as far as like what I would advise to clients like thinking before production is that like there's a lot of like cost to doing production well, and there's like levers that you can pull that like you can maybe like not pull if you don't have the money for. A lot of times like our clients will cast like do like a casting call like with like their real customers or like internal teams if they can't afford like talent. Like that's like a pretty like common place where like cost is saved. Or if there's like wardrobe styling is like something like out of scope for them, like we'll give a brief to like the talent to like bring from their own closets. Those are like the smaller scale shoots that we're trying to make work for the client, and like those are like small levers that you can do. But I will say, and like I don't mind talking about money. I think that like we're at a place now where I kind of don't say yes to shoots that are gonna be under 30K, because I think 30K is like the bare minimum to like make a production happen, and that's like a stills like shoot usually. And I think that like clients aren't necessarily aware of numbers a lot of times. Like when they come to me, like I think I had someone reach out the other day that was like, we had like 5K to do like a shoot, and I was like, that will pay for your location, and that's about it. And so I think just like being like realistic when you're ready to do a production and like actually like understanding like what it would take to like initiate that is important. And I never want to like feel like we're like too good or like too big for to do something, but there's just like a baseline at this point to do
No,
something well.
totally. Yeah, as a fellow agency owner, your prices and your craft, I think, both increase over time. Like, when we started, we're much more affordable, but I look back at our work, at the time, great, but I look back at it now, 5 years ago. So we've only been going for about 5 years, and like our first year stuff, I'm like, oh, like, and now our minimums are a lot higher. Same deal, because it's like we can't deliver the quality that I know clients want at those costs. You just can't do it. And
Yeah.
also it's not as interesting and fun for us. And
Yeah.
there's that too.
And transparently, like I just like want to also make sure like the right people are like on set to do their job like correctly. I mean, we've had clients that have asked like, do you need a photo assistant and a digitech to like get the photos? And I was like, well, you do need somebody to like manage like the monitors and receiving the images and the data and all that. And you need somebody to like be assisting the photographer with lighting. So like, yes, you do need these crew members. And so like I think that like if a client is ever in that position where they're like nitpicking every single like member of the crew on set and like trying to like
Yeah.
evaluate their value. It's just like you're not at the stage I think that you're ready for commercial production. But we want to be flexible. We want to be able to like make things happen, and we try. But I think there's just like a baseline of like of resources that you need to pull something off.
Yeah, yeah, and we see that too, like red flags of like if you're trying to nickel and dime, and like in some cases in our world, like we'll scope something out. So we make a lot of ads. So we turn the ingredients that you guys might create. We call those in like ingredients, raw footage, stills, and all that. We turn that into the performance marketing.
Yeah.
So it's like, but if I'm talking to a prospective client and they're starting to like take our fee and divide it by how many ads we're gonna create, I'm like, I think you're looking at it wrong. Like
Yeah.
this is a strategic collaboration, and it's not just we're not just a factory of ads. And God, you don't want that. You gotta trust me, you don't want that.
Well, I
Like,
think also like you don't want to be like you're saying like you don't. There's like the whole like idea of like quantifying like a per image rate or like a per spot like cost. It's just it doesn't make sense because it's never going to be equated the same way every shoot. But the only I would say is like you never want to be on a bad set. Like as a client, like if you get to that point where you're nickel and diming every single member of the crew on set, or if you're like you're really trying to be too scrappy, you're never going to get the quality of assets or even like the quantity of assets because there's not enough bodies on set to make sure it's happening in a smooth way. And you don't want to be on like a crazy, like stressful set. It just like never is going to lead to the best work. I think that like morale on set is something that people don't talk about because a lot of times like the focus is on profit, and it's on kind of like the bottom line, and it's not about like the creativity that's happening on set. And I think that like if you have a stressed out set or a stressed out photographer or a stressed out director, you're probably not going to get the same level of like problem solving or like creative juice per se that you would
Yeah.
on a well run like high morale production.
You know, what'd be cool pro tip for like the robot note taker, like is if you're planning a shoot with a production company and you're a client, maybe take a moment somewhere in that process to just like, hey, is the team going to be happy with this scope and the fee and all that, and will vibes be high? And like, 'cause again, going back, might be hand wavy, but like having the team stoked on shoot day and even during pre and post, like that's gonna show up in the work, I think. And so like maybe if the answer is no, we're basically taking a loss on this, and like the team is super stressed, and maybe you talk about how can we make this scrappier, how can we make this a win-win so everybody's stoked, and then maybe we can do something different or better the next shoot or something like that.
Totally.
The chance that a client's ever going to do that, probably zero, but we can wish.
Yeah, we can hope. We can hope.
Yeah. So for 30K, can you give me like an example of what, I know you said covers a still shoot, like what would be, a range of what the output for something like that would be? CJ here, coming to you from the editing room with a quick disclaimer. Danny was kind enough to go into some prices and scopes of work here. Don't hold the guy to it. Consider it for educational purposes only. Costs, prices change all the time. And he doesn't even have a project that he has in mind that he's talking about here. So I think we should just all consider this, what is the baseline that is required to do a commercial level shoot, whether you're working with Danny or another agency or anything like that. So thank you, Danny, for going into this. Now back to the show.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like it's hard to align on that exactly because every like brief is going to be different. But I think that like in general, you're going to be coming out with like an asset library with like some variants. Like, if it's on location, you maybe have like 3 to 4 different setups that like are styled differently to like, have maybe an exterior location, maybe an interior location, maybe you have some tabletop, some flat lay. For us, it's like, again, like I don't want to like be like on record that like we can do every shoot for 30K and this is exactly what we deliver. But
yeah, because if you say that, then somebody's like, we need a live elephant on
yes,
set.
we
have to have that.
We have gone bears on set before. That was fun.
That's cool.
But yeah, I mean, I think that like an outcome of that is like a pretty decent like asset library that like a brand can use. Or if it's a specific like for a product shoot or if it's for a lifestyle shoot or whatever, I think that like that can deliver a pretty decently high quality asset library for the brand, whether that's for a quarter use, for a year. I don't know. It depends on like what they go into that with. I would say like
is that when you say asset library, sorry to harp on this, are we talking, dozens of images, hundreds of images? Like, and I know it depends. I'm just like, depends if you have some wild set styling and all that. But if it's like a pretty basic, like, single location, all that, is it 100 images? I just have no clue.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like it depends on the shots. Like, I think that's where we would get into semantics about it because like it depends on how many shots you're doing and how many like image you get out of like one setup. If it's like, for instance, the prop style shoot, each shot is like a very hyper planned like product image. It's like styled for that. That's like a per shot, one image kind of thing. So lifestyle shoot where you're like, you have like some talent in like a location and they're like more like just like vibing and you're kind of capturing like an environmental approach. You get like dozens out of that because every like shot is maybe a different angle or a different like little bit of a different scenario. But it's really hard to quantify, and I wouldn't want to like put that on record. But
no, I same. I'm just trying to understand it too. And as soon as you say that, like if it's some in-depth thing that you have to do crazy styling and setup, and you're hanging things from like wires and all that, like obviously it really just comes down to, as I'm thinking out loud, it's like comes down to like time.
Yeah.
It's like we have a day. It's going to take 2 hours, 3 hours just to set up this one scene. Like, so it really comes down to hours, not number of times we press the shutter button.
100%. I think that's something really like important to clarify too, is that sometimes clients go into shoots being like, we want the photographer to take 200 images and we want access to all those images. Well, not every single image is going to be like worthy of your brand. Like it's like we're getting to the point where you get that select on set. You get the one that like looks really good. And I think that like the way to really think about it is like it's a day of shooting. How can we use that day to our best advantage? A lot of times, like the way we even expand deliverables and value is that we bring on a videographer and be like kind of shadow shooting with a photographer, and that's like a really pretty economical addition. That like now you're gonna have a drive of like video footage after the day to like use when you to complement these stills. But yeah, I think that's
So
like
that's interesting. So you guys are typically thinking stills first, video second, and just because of your personal experience, and or I feel like that's kind of, I don't know if it's uncommon, but I'm different in my experience, but not
yeah.
in
I
a good
mean,
or
I
bad
think
way.
like every still shoot we're on now, we're getting asked to like also deliver motion assets in some form or the other, and so a lot of times like a I think that maybe it's just the way that like creatives think. They think like a still first, in a lot of my experience, and then the video is like an add-on. Because a lot of times, like if you're thinking about motion video, whatever you want to call it, you're typically thinking about like a spot. You're not thinking about like an asset library. And so I think that
Yeah.
like when people are going into like an asset library shoot, they're thinking about like the stills, and then it's an easy add-on to be like, okay, well this videographer is gonna like kind of like shoot over the shoulder. And a lot of times photographers can work with continuous light that like allows a videographer to kind of be shooting the entire time.
Yeah.
Obviously, sometimes you need strobe and you can't work with continuous light, but it feels like it's a more common workflow, at least for us, to like have the photographer lead, add like a pretty economical videographer onto that shoot, end up with like some footage. It's not like hyper directed. It's not like hyper storyboarded. It's more like pickup shots.
Yeah.
But yeah,
No, I like that. My pro tip for everybody who's like planning a shoot, what I've heard most often is, you're partnering with a video team who thinks like video first. And I've heard this a million times. Oh, we don't need a separate photographer. We can just grab frames because we're shooting in 4 or 8K. And I've just never had success with that at the end of the never, 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 never. And I'm just like, shell out the money to have a separate photographer, like floating around spraying it down. Like,
yeah.
I don't care what any videographer tells you. In my opinion, this is my opinion. Don't plan on frame grabs being the thing you're going to be able to use for your
No,
product
I feel
photos.
like we've had that asked a few times. I'm like, well, you're not. It's not going to be what you think it is. It's like
Yeah,
yeah. There's always going to be some motion blur in there. It's
yeah,
never going to be
yeah,
exactly what you want. Yeah, totally.
yeah, yeah. What's I want to be respectful of your time, and thank you so much, Danny, for joining and chatting all the time. What's your favorite stuff to work on personally?
I love stuff that like has like some sort of a like story or like real person to it. I think when I first started in production at Squarespace, most of the work that I did was these kind of like mini docus of like real customers. Like we go to like a pottery studio to like somebody who did like small back tomorrow to like just like all these like niche kind of like creatives. And the same thing I did at Urban Outfitters. I was like the on-set like photographer on-site like photographer, and I would go like photograph the like woodworker that did all the Urban Outfitters displays, or I would like photograph the dyer for Free People and like all the different like dye swatches that she did on campus. So I've always been attracted to kind of like the storytelling of like craftsmanship or like passion. And so even like the recent spot that we just did for this athletic brand that was with an NFL running back, it was like really cool to like be like kind of showcasing somebody's like real like story. That's like something I feel like is seen less and less in like advertising these days. Like the branded content, like mini docu stuff doesn't really come across my table as much or across my desk. But like, yeah, anytime that we can kind of like craft narrative alongside like a commercial brand is
Yeah.
nice. I just like things that like are like a bigger, just like a bigger creative approach than just like a stylized tabletop shoot or something. You know what I mean?
You know
Like,
what made me think of that? What's so interesting about that, and hearing you like thinking of it from like a photographer's perspective, is like storytelling with photography versus storytelling with video. And I think like thinking about storytelling with video is almost like a pitfall. It almost makes it feel like it's too easy. Oh, we're just gonna capture this guy walking around doing his craft and blah 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 blah. But what's way harder and more artistic is like, how do I tell this guy's story in a single photo or a
Hmm.
couple photos? Like that's really like, it gives me like chills. I was at an agency in San Diego in a past life. I wasn't on this account, but saw it unfold. But we had the Wild Turkey account, and we did some really beautiful photography with Jimmy Russell, their master distiller. And just like, you're trying to pack this guy's entire life and legacy into some like beautiful portraits work, and like like that's what your story kind of reminds me of. Like, where do you put them? How do you light them? And then like thinking through like what's the whole ad. And we were fortunate that we were doing print ad, which is just so like an advertiser's dream. Print
Yeah.
advertising is so awesome. I mean,
That and
it's
like out
dead,
of
but
home. I love out of home. Like I just
yeah.
love seeing stuff out in the wild.
Yeah. So but I would love, like, that's almost cool to think about photography first, storytelling through photography, because if you could crack that, I bet the storytelling in the video can become either easier or just more, I don't know, more soul to it. I know it just sounds so hand wavy again, but like there's something there that I feel like if you do the hard part first, then the video can follow. That's kind of cool, man. Just riffing on that.
Yeah, no,
But
I agree. I think that like anytime you can kind of like pack something more into a photo or a still image and make somebody feel something, and that's like the whole advertiser's dream, making somebody like, feel somebody to like go buy something. Like
yeah,
that's like the whole
yeah,
the pipeline. But I think it's just really cool. And there's always that feeling. When I was a photographer, you would feel it like when you took a shot and you just like felt like that's it, like it clicks, and like that's always like kind of like our goal. Like when like we like produce something, we want it to like feel like there's like something like more to it, that like there was like value and quality in that, even if it's just a photo of like a product that the
yeah.
client is trying to like sell.
You remind me, we did a couple of years ago. We did a campaign for Peak Design. I think we could. It's still like kind of alive, but we could bring it back. Maybe we could work on it together someday. But it was to sell their photography equipment, because they just make really rad photo gear, straps, and storage and all that. But the idea was trying to tap into that moment that every photographer has, whether you're an iPhone photographer or a pro, where you hit that shutter button and you kind of like whisper to yourself, "Got it." And so the campaign was called Got It. And the whole plug in to the products is, the Peak Design products just help you be ready at that moment so you never miss a shot, which is, your worst nightmare in some respects, right? But that could be a cool one, bringing that to life. That could be a fun one to jam
Yeah,
on together.
love that.
Dude, last question. I gotta ask it. Where's your head at with AI?
Something I talk
What
about
is your
all the
opinion?
time.
Let's go.
uh,
Let's drop some famous last words. We can pull this up after the robots take over in a couple of years.
yeah, we'll do it in 5 minutes. I think I mean we just did a whole project with I mean, yeah, I'm assuming this will come out after this spot comes out, but with Amazon Music, and we partner with us with a VFX company, or like a post company that primarily like 50%. So like some of the stuff. And it was like one of the first times I think that like I strategically worked with AI to produce something, and it did something we wouldn't be able to do. Like it's not like, I think that like for me, I don't mind, if it's not like taking away the creative process or like creative individuals from something, but it's like more so like leveraging it in a way that like is creating something new, or a new way of doing something. I don't personally think that every single production, every single shoot is going to become an AI export. I just don't see that happening, because even what we are just talking about, like that spot we just did with a football player, AI can't do that. Like that's a real person that we're like capturing in motion and telling that story for. Um, I think AI is really crucial as an assistant and as a like resource. I mean, I use ChatGPT all the time to like make my emails nicer, and to make sure I'm like checking myself when talking to clients. We use it to help us like put together schedules and check our like documents and all that kind of stuff. So like, I think there's a huge resource in AI. I am personally not interested at this stage in like becoming an AI production company. like it's where the world goes, and like everything is like very like I'm probably gonna like go open a coffee shop or something and do like be able to like work with people. And I just like I don't want to like be prompting a computer for my career, and if that means that like I don't gonna like work in production for the next like 20 years, things evolve and things change, and like I'll be fine with that. And I think that like the way I see it happening is more of a resource and like, a tool that like people who can figure out how to use it to implement the work that will prosper.
Yeah, yeah, same page. Not anti AI. The way that our agency is looking at it is like we just need to we need to obviously stay on top of it, understand what it can do, use it as a performance enhancing drug for the stuff we're already doing, but the ideas reign supreme. They have to come first. And then it's like, oh, if we're using AI to help bring that together, great. But it's not replacing things. And then it's like, I think you nailed it there. We're gonna my opinion is like we're gonna hit this point where we all still seek human interaction too. There's that. It's like you're like, I'm gonna go open a coffee shop because it's just like, fuck that noise. Like, I don't want to just hunch over my computer the whole time, my
Yeah.
whole life. What kind of life is that? So I think people will there will be like a threshold that we'll hit up against, and people will be like, I actually like being with other humans. Like, let's pray. Let's pray that happens.
Yeah.
Um, Danny, thanks for your time. If who, where can people find you? Where can they reach out? And then who should look for you? What brands should look for you, or agencies? Who's your ideal client?
Yeah, I mean, you can find us on Instagram at Toil Studio, online at Toil.studio. You can reach out to us at production at Toil Studio. The clients that we primarily work with are, I would say, like small to mid sized companies. I mean, we work with the Lululemon and Amazon and all those big ones too. But I think that like a lot of our primary customers or clients are CPG based brands, D2C based brands, mostly product based brands. So any brands that are creating a product, whether that's a physical product like an apron, to a fashion brand, to a food and beverage brand, anyone who's like really trying to like visualize their brand is who would be a good fit for us.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks, CJ. Appreciate it.